Yep. Hi guys, I'm just waiting for Thierry to join the chat, but thank you for joining. Hello, hello.
Yo, wait, can you see me?
Yeah, Ken, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah,
Good. You
I'm
need to
frozen.
remember to set up because I'm not naked.
Jesus, Jesus.
We're not trying to explore our lifestyle here. How
Yeah,
are you anyway?
yeah. You know what? I'm not too bad, you know. The weather's cleared up here, so I can't really complain in the grand scheme of things. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
That's good. It's still kind of like groggy, but at least it's getting warmer here, so that's a good thing.
yeah, that is true actually. Yeah, I can't complain. One of those things where it's just like it's such a weird time in life that like what we're gonna do. Do you know what I mean? You've got to enjoy what we can get and
Literally.
wisely. I think a lot of us have taken 2020 as like, oh, it's the worst year ever. But actually, when you step back and think about the silver linings that have come out from a lot of this mess, is that we get a lot of time to restart, plan what you want
Mm,
to do, focus on yourself, be selfish, etc. So yeah, we just need to take advantage of the fact that we have this time at hand.
I know. I think it's been one of those years that everyone's kind of gone like it's so up and down that like
Everyone's cancelled it, man. Everyone's going, nah, done, finish. Do you know what I want? I want a refund on my calendar. I bought a physical, do you know, like a notebook, a diary with all the
that
dates.
kind of is finished. It's finished. It's done.
I think I've used 2 weeks of it. I need my money back. Do you know how much paper is sat there? Mad.
You're wasting trees, you know. Just change it to 2021 next year.
It's ridiculous. It's getting out of hand.
That's mad. Right, so we'll get into it instead of just general chat. So this is Thierry. Introduce yourself. Thierry is going to explain to us. So the key topics are what the Black Book UK is and interracial dating, as we've both experienced it. And we're going to discuss Northern life and the differences of treatment from like the south of England right up to the north and in Scotland and stuff like that as well. So Thierry, introduce yourself.
Cool. Yeah. So my name is Thierry Ngutegure. By job title, I am a data and insights manager for digital agencies. So for anybody who doesn't know what that kind of stuff involved in terms of digital agencies, it's essentially uh, digital PR and SEO. If that, to be honest, I probably just made that more complicated. My background is in the biological sciences and consumer behavior, focusing on like consumer economics. And at the moment, I look at advising companies on, well, advising people and companies in terms of consulting your businesses, as well as from a top level perspective, how to commercialize diversity. Now, what I mean by that is not how to culturally appropriate, but how diversity can actually have a bottom line impact on your revenue. So by being more equal and diverse, you can actually make a hell of a lot of money. And it sounds very simple, but sometimes some people just want to hear it from that perspective. But yeah, that's a little bit about me anyway.
Cool, cool, cool. Look at the Black King doing his work. It's nice to see.
It ain't easy in these streets, you know.
You know what I mean? You've got to be black and educated. We've been told that from a young age.
This is it.
That's
Yeah.
good. So anyway, what is the Black Book? Because I feel like if you don't know what it is, and obviously a lot of the following comes from Scotland, so I feel like when I've been promoting it, people won't know what it is, and they won't know if it's available in Scotland. So just give
Yeah.
us a rough explanation.
I think, firstly, black people are some of the most entrepreneurial people I've ever come across or had the pleasure of being part of, as if I've been another race. And so it was an idea spawned from what we're currently going through in the kind of current political climate. And what it is a directory for black-owned businesses, entrepreneurs, and creatives. So a lot of us, in my previous talks, I've talked about stuff like black economics, which I truly believe is a great way for us to move forward as a people in terms of taking our black pound and investing it within black owned businesses. And so a lot of us struggling trying to understand where these black owned businesses are. So where on earth do I start and who do I go to and where do I buy certain things, etc. So this is a web directory that kind of goes, right, this is all black owned businesses, subdivided by categories. So if I want to buy jumpers, t-shirts, food, cars, whatever that may be, we just start thinking a bit smarter and saying, okay, firstly, can I have a look at where these black-owned businesses are, and then if the case may be, I then go outside of that bubble. But yeah, it's just making it a hell of a lot easier. Now I know there's quite a lot of initiatives out there that are doing a similar thing, but I think Black Book as well go a step further in that, especially for the creatives element. I feel like they struggle from a like freelancing perspective and things like that. So you can host yourself on there as well. And if you're looking for black-based freelancers or whatever that may be, it's a good web directory to go there as well.
Okay, that's a good thing. Have you guys made any like significant achievements so far, and what is the intended goal? Obviously, like it's going to be a directory, but yeah, is there like a big aim for the end of it or anything like that?
Yeah, so at the minute, it's just basically very simplistic movements to a larger goal. So I'm a pragmatic man in the sense of like, take small steps and you'll get far eventually. And so then what we're kind of doing is here by hosting this type of web directory on us. So long term, it's going to be an app, so it's just a little bit easier. You can have it on the move as well. But what that will then long term kind of become is more of a hub of sharing knowledge, sharing business tips, consulting. If you want to start a similar business like yourself, whether it's like in the hair care products industry for black women, you can go on there and have a look at anybody else who's done it before you and seek advice and get mentoring, things like that. So yeah, it's a long-term goal, but as I say, it's little steps first, and then we'll get there. Yeah, definitely.
Baby steps needed. Is it available within Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, or is it just England? Because I feel like obviously we've said that, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be available throughout the UK because this initiative does exist quite and is quite popular in the US. But what I do think is that not that we don't have or is not a lack of, it's just not caught fire in the UK. For all of us. So whether it's Black Book doing it or another initiative doing it, somebody needs to do it, and one thing needs to kind of catch fire and be the one that kind of leads the way. So if that happens to be us, absolutely. If that happens to be someone else, then we'll put our energy and support them too. But it will be throughout the UK. So anybody up in Scotland who kind of wants to, who has a black-owned business or is a creative or an entrepreneur, get yourself on there. At the moment, there's a website link to sign up for your details and things like that. Check us out on Instagram on Black Book UK. And yeah, DM if you've got any questions or anything like that, or any issues, and yeah, we'll kind of get through and work together.
I have posted them before, but obviously for everyone that's in this, I'll post them again so you can find their details and stuff online. I had one last question I forgot I was going to ask. Oh yeah, what have you been doing with the whole like my opinion is like, what is that doing?
Yeah, so I kind of said something. So back when we were posting the black squares, I made a comment and said I find it a little bit counterintuitive, and this was X, Y, and Z and Y. And I kind of aired my opinions, and my opinions seemed to resonate with the kind of core audience that follow me. So they kind of were like, "Oh, would love to hear you speak upon this topic." So then I started my opinion, and that was the reason, that was the way I'd started the sentence in terms of just being like, it's my opinion, but I'm going to say it kind of thing. And then, yeah, it just kind of got really good reception in terms of what we talk about is, with my friend that I went to college, is just being young black men living in the UK and growing up in the UK. We cover topics from last week. We did education, so going through the educational system. We talk about being called coconuts. We talk about how black people talk about money and financial literacy. We talk about black economics, and as the specific crux around this is we've mourned, we've marched, but what is next? That is the kind of crux around it. And we're super, super honest. Like, I say things on there that my mum watches back and goes, oh, I can't believe that happened, or you did that. And I'm like, oh, mum, don't watch, block, 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 block. But that's the whole point of it. It's being honest. And half the time we get messages from so many people just being like, oh my God, I thought it was just me that kind of thought this or did this or whatever else it may be. And so that's half the battle, I think, with our community, is just communication.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good things about it. Like when I've watched it, it's been like, even with the comments when you see it, it's been a general sense of like, this isn't just me, and it's not just me going through these things. And it is quite nice having that sense of like, I can share my experiences with other people, and it is good to keep the conversations going, because I feel like you said, we've marched, we've done whatever, we've done this. Like, we need to keep this active to keep the momentum up and to keep the changes happening. So it's not in a sense of like, oh, a protest fixes all. Like, it needs to be in your face until it's actually fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a true believer as well in that everybody kind of comments on each other's ways of like one woman's protest is another person. So I mean, like one person's marching in the street is another person's writing a blog or donating or signing a petition. I'm a firm believer in that. Yes, we move as a mass, but the avenues in which we attack the situation can be kind of as complex as we want. So I, for example, don't have the time to go out and march all the time. So then I do. I speak with people like yourself and open up in this way. And someone else writes a blog and someone else writes a petition. But it's all part of a step forward. So I think as long as we're doing something, that's fine. And also, if you're not doing anything, it doesn't silent. I know we kind of turn around to a lot of our kind of black counterparts and go, oh, well, if you're not saying anything, then whatever else. But what we have to remember that is this situation has a lot of trauma for some people. And so not everybody should be called out to speak and called out to arms. And if you don't speak or you're a sellout or you're this, no, not at all. Speak if you've got something good to say or you've got an experience that you want to relay to motivate other people to get engaged. But kind of crucifying each other for a cause that we're all fighting for makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, we're all doing our bit.
Yeah, you really pinpointed that well. That was really good. So let's discuss interracial dating as a thing, because I feel like as much as society accepts it and it's very much like a thing that happens in society amongst many races, it still has much stigma towards it, and there's still oppression can be had within those relationships. So, yeah, how have you found your experience with interracial dating?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because I think there's even a wider conversation right early on at the start of the river. And what I mean by that is within our community, there's a lot of stigma within it in terms of if you are I can only speak from a black male perspective. If you're a black guy, that seems to only go for white women. Yeah. And there is a stigma within that and our community in that, oh, whether it is you're a sellout or you don't love black women or whatever that may be. And the reason I say that we need to start at the top of the river, it's understanding the levels of kind of unconscious bias that have led you into that situation. So I'm a firm believer in that you love who you love, but I also am a firm believer also in that, for example, you're a product of your environment. So when I came to this country, I have predominantly been in 90% white environments. So my education, my upbringing, and so therefore, ultimately, by matter of numerical kind of precedence, I then my love interest has then surrounded a white population. And that's not to say I haven't been with black women, or I don't love black women, or I love light-skinned women, or I don't like dark-skinned women, but I'm very aware of how dark-skinned women feel in this kind of climate, especially when it comes to interracial relationships. And I completely kind of understand and resonate with that. Now, how the wider world kind of perceives us is I've had situations where older white men have said something to me about dating a white woman. I've been in situations where I've gone into to visit like a girlfriend's family, and I've walked into the room and the dad has physically, audibly gone, "Oh, for fuck's sake, not them." Sorry, my friend. Yeah.
That's okay. Like, it's true as it is. Do you know what I mean? Speaking truth.
Yeah, and so I've been in situations where most interracial relationship, and I'm not blanking it all. More recently, I'm kind of in a relationship where there is a hell of a lot more education around it and things like that, and a lot of more awareness and love for the mixture of cultures. But previously, it was a case of I went into a relationship and had to assimilate and pretend and to be and position myself as more white so I could become the great black guy. So then the father or the mother who's maybe not as open culturally goes, "Oh, do you know what, Thierry? I like you. I just don't like those other ones."
Yeah.
It puts you in such a compromising position. But yeah, that's what I've had to do all my life, is go into those situations and assimilate. But yeah,
it's weird though, because sometimes I found that, like, when you are in an interracial relationship and it's like you feel like, do I have to dull down my blackness to be accepted? Or like it's one of those things of like, how they're gonna take me. Like, even if I was like, say if I went in like the house, my hair like this, it'd be like, oh, are they okay with that? Like, whatever. And it's a weird thing, but it's kind of like you need to find that right balance and find the person and the family that is genuinely aware.
Yeah.
and that they're not gonna like ostracize you or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because on the other side of the coin, I think a lot of so let's take the example of maybe white women. For them, it, it's an interesting perception because obviously, growing up, I've been surrounded slash brought up. The irony is, I have been surrounded by kind of predominantly white people outside, but in my home, I'm surrounded by black women like yourself,
Mm,
stuff like that. Like you guys raised me, that kind of thing.
yeah.
And it's interesting to see both sides of the coin because I think that what quote unquote white women are kind of maybe short sighted that sometimes is understanding that for a white woman when she's going out dating or going out to a bar, she doesn't have to consider whether or not that individual
Mm,
is culturally in sync with her. You see what I mean? So
yeah.
therefore she has more choice and is able to go, you know what, I'll date Tom, Dick, Harry, Jamal, whoever. That's not a
Mm,
problem. It's not a baggage I have to consider or something I have to think about. Or are they going to go, oh, you know what, you're pretty, but for a dark skin girl. Do you know what I mean? She's never going to
yeah.
have that sentences. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of preferences within dating, but it's that extra layer that is unnecessary because of a cultural bias.
Mm,
Um, I'm very, very kind of aware of that kind of stuff, and as well from a black male perspective, a lot of things that I have to consider when dating, interracially is fetishizing. So a
yeah.
lot of
I was
girls,
actually gonna ask you that.
yeah. So I've been around a lot of girls who have said, "Oh, you know what? I'd like to get you. I've never been with a black guy before. I've never tried a black guy before." And it's like, look, I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm not a bag of crisps. This isn't the new flavor of
Mm,
the week. Like I've been a black man. This is my life. This is who I am. And certain things in society and media has spun it so that you hold your purse when I'm in the lift with you, but when we're on a
mm,
night out, you want to try me as a new flavor of crisps.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's very interesting. But yeah, what about your opinion on that?
I think it's pretty the same. Like, I think for black women, it's kind of like you were saying, but like, oh, you get a lot of people in the black community that are like, oh, what are you doing and whatever. But for black women, I feel like sometimes we get it harsher, and some people will be like, oh, but you're a black woman, you're meant to have black kids and all that kind of thing. And it's one of those things of like, yeah, it's a bit odd. And even like on the white side of it, like some people be like, oh, so you don't date black men at all and whatever. And I think with me, I've never really, yes, I've grown up in Scotland and it's predominantly white and whatever, but growing up, if you look at my past relationships, I've never really had a preference of race. It's just kind of been like right person, right time or whatever. But um, I feel like most people be like, oh, you're dating white men, so you must not like white people. Oh, how come? What
Yeah,
happened? Did you get trauma? And I think there's like a trauma beside it as to why that's
yeah,
your preference or whatever. And it's like I shouldn't have to be traumatized to not date within my own race. It should just be the option of this is where I am
yeah,
and this is
yeah,
what I'm
absolutely.
exposed to.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I also feel like now I've got like a mixed race child, so I feel like I do get the question like people automatically just think like, oh, because you've got a mixed race child, you must just only date white men. And
See, I
I
was
get a
going to
lot
ask.
of people,
Yeah,
yeah, so I get a lot of people be like, oh, like you're not going to be interested in me, I'm black and your son's mixed race, and I'm like, but it's not a counter of like my past. It's more like if you're the right person, then I'll be interested in you, and that's fine. But yeah, I do feel like it's kind of similar to how the men go through the experiences. But I feel like sometimes women will get harsher, and even like I've had it like within like my white ex's family, like and stuff like that, being like, oh, so do you never want to date a black man? Or like, why not? And just I'm like, it's not that. I just happened to meet your family member,
yeah.
and
It, it's absolutely yeah. I was always interested in hearing from the other side because, from my perspective as well, like it's interesting to see that you get ostracized as well because from my perspective it might be that if I'm seen to date white women only, that any like black women are kind of like, oh yeah, don't talk to Thierry, he only dates white girls. And it's
yeah,
like, okay. I mean, if we put this down to actual pure statistics, then you'd probably figure out how, yeah, you are a product of your environment. You date the people that you're around, and don't get me wrong, like you can try and go around, but I go for personality and all that kind of stuff. And if my pool is predominantly white, and then the
mm,
personality I then find within it, then so be it. That's the person I love, and that's the person who I kind of want to be with, black, white, Hispanic, whatever that may be. Just what I mean.
mm,
And it's really interesting, and but I am very aware as well of the how society is impacting the perceptions of people. So, for example, I'll pull up things like the Kardashians, right? As much as I love their business acumen, they've done
this wayward thing to the black community.
Problematic things for our culture, because what they've done is they have made mixed race babies almost like accessories.
Yeah.
And from that business, so the new hot thing is to have a little, you know, culturally ambiguous baby who, you know, have blue eyes but like dark skin but like curly hair and things like that. And so that hyper kind of sexualization or accessorization of kids has then meant that it has a knock-on effect from the people who are then dating for long-term interracially and for an accessory. And so then that's where you get the whole fetish element or whatever else like that. And I find it hilarious that society tells everyone that we're criminals and crooked and this and that, but yet from a dating world, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl, or I've never tried a black guy before, or do you know how many girls I've heard say, oh, I'd love mixed-race babies? And it's like...
It's so mad. Even when I was pregnant, I remember, like, I would have, like, some, like, colleagues and stuff be like, oh, you must be so happy having a mixed-race baby. And I'm like, I'm just happy to have a baby. Like, as long as he's healthy, happy, and whatever, like, as long as he comes out okay, that's fine. But they would be like, oh, so what if he has blonde hair and blue eyes? I'm like, look at me. Like, he's not... It's just not happening. And it's like that thing of like, even to this current day, like now he's here, like I've had like, obviously little kids, they don't understand the extent of what they're saying or what they're doing. But like when I've taken him to parks and stuff like that, like I've had little kids like, can I touch his hair? And oh, he's so cute. Let's go and play football with a mixed race kid. And I'm like, do I educate you at a young age, or like, do I keep it to the parents? Because the parents obviously aren't doing it. But like, as a mother, I get hurt and then I get like defensive and I'm like, I want to snap at them. But then I'm like, I need to realize that they're not aware. And they're not understanding. So there's been a few times where I've been like, don't touch his hair, don't do whatever. And I feel like I must have like a crazy mom shouting at all the kids in the park. But I'm like, it's not normal. Like, it shouldn't be like that. And there's been times like we've been in the park with him and he will literally have like a football team of kids around him. And like, he's just in the middle like a little dirty little kid. And there's people like, oh, look at his hair and look at this. Oh, he's so cute. And I'm like, yes, you're complimenting him, but it's a fetishing compliment. It's not a genuine, like, if it was a baby of their own race or if it was like a full black child or anything like that. And it was just a bit mad.
Man, it's so problematic. And how has, I mean, feel free to skirt the question, how has dating interracially, so as a black woman, been to bring home a non-black man or woman of your choosing?
I think with my family, like, obviously, you know, like we grew up together, so like we've been very exposed to interracial relationships growing up, and like we've got aunties and stuff that have like, and uncles that have like white partners and things like that. So I think because I was so exposed to it growing up, my parents weren't too bothered. I think there was the obvious little like, oh, okay, so you're not dating a black man. Like, there was a couple of the comments, but essentially once I was just kind of like, this is the person I'm with and whatever, they were calm. As long as I'm happy and that's the person has good intentions for me, then that's all they can really be concerned of. So I think it's been quite a good thing that like my family's been very like aware and they're socially aware of like their surroundings. And I think even like, I think my parents do understand that you are a product of where you are, and they understand that if we were in, say, down south or say like back home in Africa, then we would have more of our racial option.
Yeah. And from my perspective, when we were younger, I think when we first came to this country, it was, I mean, we're first generation immigrants, so we are the first to technically date outside of Rwandans, let alone like grow up doing that. So yeah, we have been exposed to a lot of interracial relationships growing up, and it's just a learning curve as with anything. So when we first landed in this country, everything from language to finance to politics, everything is a bit of a learning curve for your parents, and you kind of have to teach them certain things. But my parents have been very, very proud of is assimilating to that interracial relationship or dating outside of a Rwandan woman. Like Kate, they absolutely love her, and that
they don't want her.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? That kind of crossover is beautiful to see, and it benefits both sides of the coin. Once both sides decide to open up, you benefit so much more. A lot of education, a lot of the food is bloody amazing, and the parties are incredible, and it's just a genuinely beautiful mix. But what I find really interesting is that from just the black community in general, the funny thing is we even judge each other on the type of black people we date. So even if you went, even if I went, you know what, yeah, so I'm in a relationship with a black woman, I'm guaranteed someone will be like, where's she from?
Mm.
And then if I say something that isn't Rwandan or has a certain connotation or whatever, but like, oh, thugs, thieves, this, that. Oh, okay, no, they're not good. So then even within our own community, we're like,
Mm-hmm.
we're cutting each other apart. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's so harsh, and it's one of those things. I think with our parents, because Rwanda is such a small place, they've had that understanding of even here we're gold mines. Like being in the UK, when someone meets me, they're like, "Oh, you're Rwandan," like, "Oh shit." But I think our parents luckily were very understanding of like we're a small country, and for them to find their own race that they haven't grown up with,
Yeah.
for to like actually date, it would be kind of like I think they're quite good at understanding like we're not going to expect them to find a Rwandan that they don't know, they haven't grown up with, they haven't built that cousin complex with or whatever. But even in the sense of like you'll hear like the mother's tales being like, oh, Nigerians marry within their own race and da 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 da, and like Jamaicans and Caribbeans, and like there's always those different stereotypes that we are fed from like the outer circle that
Yeah.
kind of damage the inner circle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'm very protective over though is when dating interracially, like I'm very open and to assimilate and all that kind of stuff, but there are certain things I'm not willing to let go in my culture and I'm stubborn upon. So what I mean by that is we came to this country and had to, as I say, assimilate and take on cultural norms that we have never seen before, learn a language we've never seen before, eat food we may have never seen before. So what my parents did is create a cultural bubble for us. So at home we speak Kinyarwanda, so that's our
Mm-hmm.
mother tongue. And at home we eat Rwandan food, and we carry those little bits we're holding on to because my parents always believed you can learn English outside and you can eat English outside. So when I've entered relationships, then I've stood my ground on certain cultural aspects of things,
Yeah.
and those are some of those things I'm not willing to move on. And sometimes if that individual or other half or whoever I'm dating or whoever I'm talking to, they aren't as open minded to absorb that level of culture, then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as
Have you
that.
ever experienced like a breakup because of a culture clash? Like, have you been with someone interracial and got to the point where like, I can't keep trying to plead my case and trying to like tell you why like these values are very important to me. So because of that, it's kind of like it's got to wrap it up.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because um, I have like the way you judge a preference, my cultural norms are a preference too. So what I mean by that is
Mm-hmm.
the way you'll go, oh, that guy's my type because he is tall, muscly, and whatever. I then go, that girl is my type because yeah, she's tall, whatever, but that is also a factor, that kind of cultural openness. Because
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, if you're not even culturally open, you won't even be my friend.
Yeah.
So then it's already a factor that I've considered before we've ever got anywhere near. So, like, for example, the way people talk about money on their very, very first earliest stages of dating, maybe like, oh, what job do you do? I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking those questions too. And as soon as that is something that is red flag to me, then I'm out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to waste my time. I don't need to think.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those guys who's like, I'm going to change a woman or whatever else it may be. Absolutely not. I know who I am. I know the 2 feet that I stand on, and I've built myself, and my family have inputted into me. And if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't had the opportunity to have that from your side, that's fine. It just means you're not for
Yeah.
me.
That's fair enough. I think with my experience, it was one of those things of like, I think the biggest cultural clash I ever had was probably with my son's dad. But the cultural clash only came once we had the child. And it was like in a sense of like, so it was once we had the child, and then I was very much like, this is what my mother did, this is how Africans do it, this is like the things I want to do. Even in the sense of like, we grew up on our mother's back, like our mothers put us on our back every
Yeah.
day in, day out, just doing housework. And like when I would do that, he'd be like, oh, the baby's not safe, he's gonna fall, like, and he would get really, really scared. And I'm like, it's such a simple thing, like
Yeah.
it's not that deep. And I remember like I used to put my back, go to the shops, go and get the messages and stuff like that, and come back, and then he'd be like, he would literally stand at the door and be like, watching me, being like, his baby fell out, and you're not telling me, like, blah, 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 blah. So I think our cultural clash mainly came from after having the child, because there was things I wanted to do with him, and even like the biggest thing of like the circumcision. And that was like a really, really big argument within us. And it was the kind of thing of like, I want it done because culturally, like, black men have it, and this is what I've seen and what I've been taught to know and whatever. And then he was like, but no, because you wouldn't do it to a girl. And I went, but the difference is with a girl, it's actually illegal.
Yeah.
But I think the more we got into it, I did see his argument, which is kind of valid. But at the same time, I was like, but it's a cultural thing, and it's like the cleanliness side of it and whatever. But yeah, I think with us, it was kind of like we had very big cultural clashes on how we wanted to raise our children and whatever and things like that. And I was like, he's a mixed race boy. He needs to be very aware of both sides. I'm not trying to like erase your culture, but don't erase mine.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually from that raising a child thing, because obviously with Kate and stuff like that, like she's very open to learning about the hair care products, the food, and all that kind of stuff. And for her, it's a cultural renaissance. She's absorbing it, kind of thing. But what I maybe overlooked is that when you have that mixed race child, that mixed race child is now a race in his or her own right. So yes, the mother and father kind of have to input, and it's always going to be kind of a cultural battle here, here, and here. But what we realize is that here as well is its own entity. So he may have his own identity crisis at some point that is completely separate to you and completely separate to the father, where he goes, okay, well, I'm from both sides of the coin. Who do I resonate more with, or who am I, or have I neglected my my white Western side or my Rwandan black side? Like, going to have those battles uniquely that you have never experienced before, or he may even have racial clashes where he that you've never seen before, where there are words that are thrown at him that you've never heard because of you're not mixed race, that quite simply. So it's super interesting to see that at the moment in time, before he can experience all this, it's kind of a culture clash between the two of you, and then soon I believe there'll come a time where you kind of both go, crap, we actually need to probably defend him.
Yeah, and this is the thing that like I've even tried to like express to his dad, being like, no one's saying that you're not gonna, like, we don't know what we're doing essentially, like until these things come to surface we don't know how the best way is to go about it. But I'm like, it would just be nice, or it would be good if you could then take on some of those cultural values, yes, your own, and adapt mine, because obviously I'm a first generation migrant, so my culture is adapted. It already is adapted in what it is. So my culture inside my house compared to my mother's house is going to be different, because I am what I am, and my mum's house is still African. We have African food and whatever. But like, I feel like sometimes we get to like a clash, because him and himself would be like, oh, well, I'm a white male who hasn't experienced much prejudice, so I don't think that it can't really resonate with the things I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of like a shame, because I'm like, for him being for the dad, like we go to our dads for everything, and there's certain things that like a mother can't do for a boy, and there's certain advice a mother can't give a boy, and I would hate for him to feel like his voice wasn't being heard by his father because his father doesn't understand it racially.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So it's a very awkward point to be in. But I've always, like, even when I was pregnant, like I've always made it a point, like, please try and understand and see where I'm coming from and these things. He doesn't to this day, but I'm like, as long as he gets the good side of it from my side of the family, or like even just his other peers that are around him and things like that, like hopefully he will have that like safe balance and just be like genuinely confident in himself. But even now at the age of 3, he's very like racially aware of himself, and he questions me on like my skin color and like his dad's skin color and like even kids in his school and stuff. And like there was one thing that he said that, like, this is like a couple months ago, and it really like it like resonated with me. He said, what's it called? So one of my friends is mixed race, and he was like, "Oh, mummy, you're brown, you're black, daddy's white, and I'm like her." And he used her name as a reference. And I was like, "Yeah, like you are like her. That's very good." And then he was like, "But why?" And like he just didn't understand. And he was like, "But why?" And I was like, "Because you're a mix, like you're 2 cultures combined." And I was like trying to celebrate the fact and whatever. But like it's got to a point now where I'm like, right, okay, I'm trying to explain it with Barbie dolls. Yeah. And be like, okay, so you've got a brown Barbie doll and a white action man, and be like, right, they come together and then you come. Or if you've got like a black action man and a white Barbie doll, this is what creates your race. So he's kind of like putting 2 and 2 together, but it's just so difficult to try and have those conversations.
Yeah, but
and it's at a young age as well.
Well, this is the thing, I think, though. Props to you for having those at a young age, because having them from early on gives you an opportunity for him to always come to you and ask those questions and be like, you know what, mum, like, why am I different, or whatever else it may be. because I'm different. What are the differences I share with you and share with dad and things like that. So it has an open communication, because the worst thing I think our culture as well really struggles with is the communication between the kids and parents. I think we come from a very, I mean, we're quite lucky with our parents, but their kind of grandparents and things like that, it was very authoritative. And even with our upbringing, to be honest with our parents, it's very authoritative. It's do as I say, under my roof kind of thing. And to a point, yes, that's kind of great. But what it does sometimes is, when you need to be a little bit more sensitive or get to certain topics that you're not too comfortable talking about, you're not going to go to the person who's always like saying, do as I say, not as I do. Just what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
go to somebody else who kind of is a little bit more open, that's a little bit more warming. So the fact that you're doing that at an early age is good at setting a precedent for the things that he can speak to you about, and opening that door. So yeah, no, you gotta give
I
yourself
think
props.
that's where it comes from as well. It's that communication that we had with our parents is like, yes, we can go to them and we can get advice, but it's got to be on like educational matters, work matters, and like things that are logical in a sense. But the emotional kind of comes from like your siblings and cousins and stuff like that. And I think it's one of those things that I was like, I would want him to always come to me first before his sisters or his, well, whatever siblings he does get. But yeah, I would rather him come to me as the first point of call, and then we can then go like, oh, maybe ask your brother or sister for advice, or whoever is there at the time.
Yeah. Have you had any experiences where him being a mixed race child, maybe he's too young for it, like maybe being like bullied or picked on or whatever that may be, or if he is, do you know how you're going to deal with that?
You're the person that bullies that child. I've actually not, but I think I got more of it at like the start of like when he was first born. So like obviously you go to like mother and baby groups and things like that, and because he was like, everyone knows black kids get their pigment later on, like it kind of develops once they come out of the body. So he was like a little pasty white baby. So I used to get a lot of comments and a lot of funny looks, and like I remember there was one woman at like the mother and baby class, and this comment has always stuck with me. She went, "Are you his nanny? Where's his mum?" And I went, "So only black women can be nannies? Like,
Mad.
where does that come from?" And she was like,
Yeah,
"Well,"
are you the nanny?
she asked me if I was a nanny. She thought I was his nanny. She was like, "Oh, where's his mum? Is she back to work already?" I was like, "I'm his mum." And she was like, "But he doesn't look like you. He's not dark enough." And I was like,
Wow.
"So, do you know what I mean?" And I was like, "But if a white woman had adopted a black baby, this conversation would have happened."
Listen, it'll be on the front page of the Daily Mail, and it'll be like, congratulations, whatever else it may be. And this whole buying of black babies is the maddest thing, honestly, that our society ever went through. It's absolutely wild. But
That whole white savior, but
yeah, I do have to hold my hands up, though. Be honest, that if in fact, it's a genuine situation. So I drove past so a white couple, so white male, white female, with one white child and two black kids. Yeah, that boggled my mind. I don't know why. I looked once, I looked twice, I triple looked, but the presence of that kind of mixed culture blew my mind. And I was thinking, like, have they adopted the kid? Have they did it? But the fact that I even questioned this is it's a mazine in itself. You see what I mean?
yeah.
Like, but yet, if I saw a black family where all of them are black, I wouldn't question it. But yet, you never know, that one of the children might be adopted, or one of the children might not even. Do you know what I mean? Be their own. They might be babysitting. It might not, none of those kids might be theirs. But I wouldn't double look them at all. I wouldn't hesitate. But that, honestly, I almost broke my neck looking.
You
So
get so confused because you're like, I don't know whether to like, am I just being prejudiced because of how I've been taught, or like how society views it, and this is what I think. But it makes you feel bad because it's kind of like, why am I? You get yourself in a state thinking like, am I an oppressor, or like, am I thinking negatively?
yeah, no, absolutely. But I think on another note, I've been thinking about this over the last week. There has to be some props given to those who pursue relationships that are outside of their culture, like for long-term benefit, where society tells them it's bad. So what I mean by that is, there's been situations, for example, where my Asian friends, Asian female friends, have entered relationships with a white male, so a white Western male. and she's kind of then said, you know what? He's come into a culture that isn't his own, that society usually goes, oh no, don't enter that culture. It's really, really bad. It's very oppressive, bad for this, bad for that, bad for this. And yet has pursued that girl for long-term relationship statuses and is assimilating to that culture. Yeah. Props given to sometimes like that.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that I think we've seen it firsthand. Like when you have that like white auntie or uncle or whatever, and then you see like, nah, they've come correct. Like they come to parties, they do whatever, they wear their like traditional outfits when they've got to. Some of them even learn the language, and you're like, if you have done that much effort to actually make sure and make the family know that like, yes, I'm dating your daughter or your son, but I want to be part of this family. I want to be part of this culture. I want to do everything that is the same as you guys to make it feel like I am trying.
Yeah, like when we see white women in full traditional gear at a Rwandan wedding, busting it down on the dance floor, you're like,
do you know what I mean? You do your thing, man. Do it.
Absolutely get it. But I wonder, do you get the same thing as a white woman going to a white wedding with a white partner? Have you ever had that situation?
So me going into a wedding with a white partner.
You're going into like I say a wedding because that's usually the largest gathering of like of the same culture or whatever.
Yeah. I don't really think so. I don't, because I think they just expect you to know the culture.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because I think because we're here and in the UK, they just think, well, this is normal life to them and whatever. So they kind of like just expect you to know it and expect you to assimilate and stuff like that. And I think what I found was that in Scotland, there's a lot of like traditional songs that Scottish people will play at like parties and stuff like that, and they'll play like at the end of the night, and there's like certain ways that the songs are played. And I think like a lot of times that people are just expecting me to know them because I've grown up here, and I'm like, my mom was trying to play this music in the house. Like it's not a thing that I was raised on. So when I don't know it, like I'll join in the dances and try whatever, and I'll try my best. But like the only Scottish cultural upbringing I got was doing ceilidh dancing in school.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of one of those things. But I feel like most times for me, it's been like everyone's just expected it, and they feel like because you've grown up here, then that's the normal or whatever. Or like, but then you'll flip it, and sometimes they expect you to go to like big events and big parties wearing your own traditional, and I'm like, but this is for your family, it's not for mine.
Yeah.
So just because you think I'm like the black person that's coming, like I shouldn't have to like dress up and then be the star of the show and whatever, and like be that person, be the token black person, because it's not fair. Like,
yeah, and I think as well in interracial relationships where it's going to be a long-term thing, I think that if your family has got a problem with me being black, whatever, that's not my problem. That's your problem. That's what I mean. That's a you problem.
Yeah.
So when some people, because I feel like some people make a lot of excuses for their family members, where they're like, oh, you know, they're from a different generation, or you know, they're a bit older, or oh, don't listen to him. You know, he's had a difficult upbringing. Listen, it's hard out in the streets for everybody, okay? And yes, you're a little bit older, so if anything, big man, you were alive when the Black Panthers were doing their thing. You've seen TV and the internet come through. You've seen the most changes in society, and so therefore should have the most educated mind in the fact that you existed before interracial marriage was legal, and now you're in a world where it is legal and it's kind of celebrated. If anything, you should be the most educated out of all of us. So telling you, oh, you know what, don't worry about my granddad, you know, he's thinking, I'm sorry, but it doesn't fly. Like, if in terms of them kind of being old, I'm not going to be yelling at some, you know, like an old man, but I just need people to learn where the accountability sits. If your granddad my black skin, that's a you problem. It is not a me problem.
Yeah. Do you feel like whenever you've gone to like parties for like your white partner, do you feel like everyone kind of looks at you to be the dancer?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They expect a certain level. Do you know what it is? Sometimes not in the situations I'm in now, because I feel like I'm a bit more mature and the crowd that I'm in are a bit more educated. But when I was younger, I felt like I was the entertainment. It felt like I had arrived, and a lot of the times it was like, oh, you know, the token black dude is here, kind of thing. So yeah, I did feel And the mad thing is a lot of societal stereotypes that aren't negative of black men in terms of like, oh, life of the party, he can dance or you got rhythm, whatever, and is good at sports. I was fortunate to have those skills, and so then I could play on them for my own advantage. But I have black friends who, don't have any rhythm and they can't play sports, and maybe they're a bit more academically minded, or if anything, on the whatever the opposites may be. And I can understand how it can be difficult. And what then happens is, if I then turn up, let's say there was another black guy there, and I've turned up with my partner, whatever else it may be, they'll almost be like, oh, yeah, we don't talk about him anymore. He's a boring black dude. The real black guy's turned up.
Yeah.
That kind of happens. Or, yeah, it gets a little bit problematic.
It's a bit odd because even like it's one of those things of like when you go to parties and stuff, you like get like a group of white girls and be like, I want to learn how to twerk and like da 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 da. I'm like, YouTube's there. I'm not YouTube fam.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's a bit mad because it's awkward because it's like, is that all that I'm here for? Is to just shake ass? And like I'm literally just, like the thing is, or sometimes it'll be like when you're just generally dancing how you dance and how like we dance as a culture and whatever, and you'll get people like, oh wow, it's so amazing and it's so exotic and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay.
I've been, honestly, the last couple of years, I've been hella blind to like like those types of struggles of black women, and it's something that I've talked about in my opinion as well, in terms of like I'm aware of it now, way more, because I've kind of read and educated myself, and I've asked and I've spoken to you guys for once. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like now, as cousins, we're a lot closer than we have ever been, and I admittedly, a lot of those things I would overlook or even embellish as well. I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, obviously she's a black girl, she can twerk and I'll play up and things like that, and don't realize what impact that has or how that makes somebody feel. And what I'm trying to say by that is, it's all right to just hold your hands up, and just say, you know what, I didn't know that was a thing that you struggled with. I'm sorry, and so therefore going forward I'll kind of be better. But it's when people kind of then just go, me? No, I didn't. Doesn't mean I'm racist. I've got a black cat. That's like
them ones.
Yeah. And it's just like,
just a bit mad.
Yeah, and also not understanding, which I've done quite a lot of reading up on in the last couple of years, is how society has stolen so much from black women, but not given credit. I find it nuts when you actually think about it. So all these things like twerking and braids and all these dance challenges and everything else, they all start from black women, mate. Do you know what I mean? And all these hair care routines and makeup and contouring and everything else. I mean, contouring kind of comes from the drag community and stuff like that, but a lot of those makeup.
It also comes from the Africans, when the Africans used to paint their faces for like men to find them pretty and stuff like that. So it kind of originates from both drag and.
Yeah, at some point or another, a black woman touched it and made it famous, mate. But don't get credit for it. And so I think that's a lot of stuff that we also have to educate ourselves on, just because there is a great danger of culturally appropriating something, even though you're in an interracial relationship, because you think you can get away with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, I got a black boyfriend. So no, hun, you stand as your own person, and you should, if you have a black boyfriend, you should know that this ain't okay to be moving like this. Just what I mean? And it's up a bit of own accountability. It's up to you to learn, but also it's up to that partner as well to kind of put in and go, look, yo, that's not okay. We can't be moving like that. So
I don't know if you've seen it. There was a video of this white girl dating a black man. It was on TikTok, and like she literally called him nigger. And it was one of those things of like, do you know how you take those like videos when like they're not paying attention and you say the name and then you look up and whatever. And then she literally, I think the caption was like, oh, bae's so cute. But then she literally, so my guy was distracted and she was filming him. And then she went, oh, hey, what's up, nigga? And then Maggie looked up and smiled and laughed. And I was like, you can't be like, yes, you can be annoyed at those people that are culturally appropriating, but you have to be annoyed at the person as well that's not correcting them and not telling them that like that's problematic. That can't be said.
Oh my! The thing is, I would have, if that ever happened to me, I would have called you guys and said, listen, Benny and Nikita, Sandra and Lisette,
we're coming on site. Like
we got everyone grab a ballet. We're gonna roll. You guys have to roll up immediately. That is but you are right that it is. We do have to hold ourselves accountable as well and set the threshold of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and also even knowing that, like, God forbid he finds that acceptable, in his own house. He then needs to educate her to a point that, like, yeah, even though I let that slide, like, no one else out there is letting it slide. Do you see what I mean? Like, there needs to be just thought and awareness of certain things. But yeah. Oh God, this is flowing.
It's a mad thing, because I felt like even growing up, like, obviously, like, I was in such a predominantly white school to the point that, like, I can count on my two hands how many black people. That's not including me and my sister, because we made up the majority of black people there. But, like, it was one of those things of, like, once people started getting closer to you, they'd be like, "Oh, can I say nigger now?" And I'm like, "No, you can never say it."
And
Like,
it's not membership. Jesus.
you know what I mean?
Like, I've got my black card.
You can be like, "I've got a nigger friend."
It's not a Nando's black card. What the
You know what
heck
I'm
is going
saying?
on? No,
Yeah, nah, it's a bit mad.
yeah, Nikita put it properly there, right in the comments. Says enablers can sometimes be worse than the full frontal racist, and it is that sometimes.
Yeah.
What you let slip in your own household can then, you know, encroach onto the outside. So it's up to us to kind of set that threshold of respect and things like that. And God forbid someone said that to me. Woo.
I would die. I would actually, like, it would just be one of those things of like, yeah, phone the police now. Before
Yeah,
anything happens.
absolutely. And I think, oh God, I can see time ticking away. But I think cultural
What time are we
relationships.
on?
We've got about 8 minutes, but yeah,
Okay.
interracial relationships. Personally, aside from all the politics and all the internal conflicts and the struggles and stuff like that, I think it's some of the most beautiful partnerships that can exist if it works properly and the other person is super respectful and you set the tone and you kind of both embrace each other and you talk about it verbally, not just assuming that, oh, I can and can't say this, and you physically talk about it, like I do. Me and Kate talk about all the time. But once that starts to happen, it's honestly, it's incredible. Like, to come together, regardless of whether it's black, white, Asian, or whatever that may be, Greek, kind of Jewish, or other religious kind of cultural coming together. It's insane. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Quick question. I know we've probably like covered it, this whole topic, but can you be pro-black and still date interracially? Because I'm sure people might want that covered.
Oh yeah. So this is an interesting one. Yeah. So based on my preference, it makes me non-pro-black. Like, that doesn't make any sense, because what that's telling me is, because I'm in an interracial relationship, I can no longer support you, Benita, or I can no longer support my sister, or I can no longer wish good. Like, if anything, being an interracial relationship has actually made me more pro-black. Yeah, and it close to me can attest to that, because the recent things that have been happening, if anything, have started educating me, because I hold my hands up in that I was kind of not culturally lost, but I was culturally ignorant for quite a long time, and I was just assimilating to what was in my environment and just trying to survive. Yeah, Johnny, we're surviving out here.
It is survival. It's basically I'm assimilating to not get racial abuse.
Yes, absolutely. But what I've now learned recently, and I hold my hands up to it, absolutely. I think I've been very ignorant to my culture, but since that point, in the last like year or so, year and a half, I've kind of educated myself in who I am, who I want to be, the kind of man I want to be, and I'm very openly pro-black. Now, pro-black again doesn't mean anti-white in that kind of sense either. It's that I want to see faces like me in places we're not allowed to be. This system wasn't built for us, but I'll honestly die if I don't, like, without trying. Well, I'll die trying. Sorry. So, does it mean I'm not pro-black? Trust me, if anything, I've become even more.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that was one of the things, like, when I was in an interracial relationship, I was like, very much, I need myself to be seen. And just because I'm dating a white counterpart or another race, I'm still myself and I still hold my values down. And I want to, yes, interracially and not assimilate, I can't think of the word for it, but, like, yes, obviously be within both cultures, but this is my culture and I support my people, I support everything they're doing, and I want to support all cultures and all aspects of the interracial aspect that I'm in.
Yeah, and it's like, that sentence even blows my mind. Like, can you date interracially and be pro-black? And it's like, that kind of thing is almost like being like, are you asking me if I'm an all lives matter person? That's what you're asking. And I'm not. I'm a Black Lives Matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't actually make it, it's actually a level of insult in saying that I have stepped away from my culture, or I am a cop out or a sellout or whatever else. And it's like,
Yeah.
listen, listen, I'm as black as you are. So whatever tier system you've built of blackness, that's your own to fall under. But for me,
Yeah.
black.
Deuces. But yeah, I feel like that was one of the questions I was kind of like, I know a lot of people will be thinking that under their head because I was like,
Yeah.
even when I was in an interracial relationship, I feel like people just thought like, oh, so you just want to use this interracial side to get in easier into doors and have to not accept like what you are and stuff. And it's like, no, I know what I am and I know who I am, but I'm going off in this way.
I'm even more so, and I'm loud about it. Like, look all over my Instagram. I post opportunities for other young black people. I support young black men. I set up initiatives and schemes for black businesses. Like, jeez,
Mm.
listen,
You're doing bits though.
oh, let me know. Yeah.
Applaud to you, applaud to you. We never actually got, I know time's ticking, we never actually got to the last point, but because there's another chance for another conversation, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Okay.
feel like we did really, really well. We've covered, I feel like we've broadened the conversation of interracial dating and children and our aspects on it. And yeah, you have any
Yeah, it's
last
hard in
pieces?
these streets. It's hard in these streets. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
That's all right.
We've got another My Opinion book coming out on Friday. I'll be sharing what the topic will be on that. And we're also always open to kind of suggestions on topics and stuff like that. So please, please give us a shout. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I will post Thierry's details on the social media and I'll post the Black Book UK. Get yourself on it if you've got a business. They're really good for you. And obviously, Scotland and England, the communities were both black. Like we've got them existing. So just kind of merge together. That's what I'm
It's
trying to do.
cold up in your streets, but I'll come visit.
Listen, the way it's working, we'll make some movement to be better. All
Amen. Amen.
right,
Amen.
see you soon.
Take care, my
Bye,
dear.
guys.